Welcome to JMac Investing. My name is Jason. So we've done a virtual interview before you de-SPAC.
It's great to have you here, Jason. So very excited to walk you through the campus and the factory.
Yeah. It's a massive facility. This is Tim Reeser, CEO of, are you the founder as well? Of
I'm co-founder.
Co-founder, okay. Lightning eMotors here. We're on campus here in Loveland, Colorado. So it was here today, and he presented earlier this morning. There was some covered side analysts here. We toured the facility. So good time, really good time. Thanks for inviting me.
Happy to have you here. Happy to be able to show it off. And we were talking earlier about getting to see the differences live. And because we've been in COVID for so long, it was difficult for people to really see what was real and what wasn't. I know you have a software background, and so do I, so kind of what we've always called vaporware, or faking a demo. But when you're here, you can't fake it. What you see is reality, and this is where the investment is. So really happy to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting news for me because I've been following your company for a while, and it was very exciting because I feel like you're one of the more mature, electric vehicle companies in all the space, but especially, this class 3 commercial vehicles. With the announcement of the e-chassis, which was very exciting, I feel like that probably sets you guys up to really lead the space. So what details can you share about the e-chassis?
Yeah, so I think the first one is we want to be an and company, not an or, meaning we're going to continue to support what I call the legacy OEM chassis, Ford, GM, Hino, Isuzu. We've got a lot of customers who appreciate their very mature service networks, parts network, et cetera. And so we certainly want to continue to support those customers, and we have a great product offering, a very mature product offering in a lot of those platforms. But now as we looked out and said, especially in a world of chassis constraints, for our customers not being able to get some of the chassis they need, also in an opportunity is we now have enough volume to support building our own e-chassis, whereas before when it was in the teens or 10s or 20s, it's very difficult to do all the tooling around an e-chassis and be able to get a return on that investment. But now in the thousands of units a year, we can get a return on that investment. So we started the work around that, and then we did in the process, as you would expect, find some areas where we could provide some additional value versus a chassis that was originally made for a gasoline or diesel engine. So we've been able to work with the chassis to be able to put in more batteries, support more weight, and support better battery placement. So where the batteries go in the vehicle from a safety and a convenience standpoint and a weight distribution standpoint, but yet still have a chassis that our partners like Forest River, like Collins School Bus, could put their bus body on, plug and play, just like they used to do with a legacy OEM chassis. So we're excited about the solution. We do feel, as you pointed out, Jason, that it's a differentiator, but we're also really, finding our space in the market, telling customers we're going to continue to support what we have in the past, both legacy chassis and our new e-chassis.
Right. So you're saying you can place the batteries and put more batteries. So I'm assuming that provides potential for potential more range than the one that you can you're working with now with the Ford and the.
Yes. And the biggest range addition is not only because of space, but just as importantly, weight. So we're able to push some of the GVWR ratings higher than we can from a legacy chassis, and therefore put more batteries in and still have the same amount of payload, or put the same amount of batteries in and have more payload than we could in a legacy chassis. So again, with commercial vehicles, you have this payload constraint that you don't have with a passenger vehicle. In passenger vehicles, you just put as many batteries as you can fit until you don't want to spend any more money.
Right.
On commercial vehicles, you have this GVWR head that you've got to stay under, bar that you've got to stay under, and then balance your payload, which could be passengers or could be boxes, balance that with how much range you want. And so the ability now to have some additional flexibility around that with an e-chassis is certainly advantageous to our customers.
That's awesome. And we had a brief Q&A session, and I asked it there, but I asked it here because I'm sure there will be comments or questions about it. So I know you haven't released like specs or like lots of concrete details, where it's going to be manufactured, et cetera, et cetera. So what kind of timeline are you looking forward to provide more details around the e-chassis?
We're expecting this summer, prior to this summer, to have more details around e-chassis, and also to talk about kind of the breadth. So when we first talked about eChassis, we started out talking about one class and one solution. We now look at it much more broadly because our volumes, we have the customers to think about it in a broader space. So we expect over the next 90 days to provide a lot more detail on our strategy, what we're doing, and also some prototypes people can look at, feel. And obviously that's important for our customer base. The integrators like Forest River, like Leader Ambulance, like Collins School Bus and others, they need to be able to put their products on top of these, and that's important, as in a school bus on top of this chassis.
Right.
So we want to be able to work and are working very closely with those customers to make sure that our product meets their needs right out of the gate.
Makes a lot of sense. So you brought up supply chain issues previously, and I tuned into the earnings call, and of course this is an investing channel, so it was very funny watching the market reaction after hours, because I think part of that was due to some of the discussion around supply chain issues that not just you're facing, but everyone is facing. And then it recovered, the share price that is recovered within 24 or 48 hours. And so what's your take on that?
Yeah, and I think one of the things we announced that day was our repower, a certified repower that we put together, a program with Forest River, and the fact there's 50,000 of those vehicles. And so what I believe the market started to see and maybe took a little bit for it to absorb is the fact that we're going to continue to be very flexible. So as we look out and say, okay, we're in a situation where Class 4 chassis today are highly constrained. It's very difficult to get them for gasoline or electric. And again, as I've said, I see that as a medium-term opportunity for us because there's a gap in the market and we're going to fill it. And that is our space. We are very, very good in the Class 4 space, and we want to be good there, and we want to own that market. And right now we're market leaders there, so we're going to work to be there. And the fact that the gasoline vehicles in that space are highly constrained, we see ultimately as a good indicator for a market we can take. But in the meantime, we've got to still be able to meet revenue and continue to grow at a very fast pace. And so our goal was, hey, when we started to show we can be flexible, we can talk about our mobile battery vehicle product that doesn't require a Class 4 chassis. It sits in a trailer, so we don't need a chassis for that. We started talking about repowers, which use chassis that are already out there. So there's 50,000 Forest River shuttle buses on the ground, doing employee or transit or public transit today. The fact that we don't need a chassis and we can repower those is a significant differentiator for us. We built the powertrains we built from the ground up so that we could install them in a vehicle that already has a body on it, and so it supports repower in that aspect. So I think part of it was the market absorbing that we're going to continue to be flexible, and we're not going to pretend there aren't supply chain issues. I think anybody who says they don't have any is naive or not building anything. I've read a couple stories from people who say they don't have any, and then you look, they aren't building anything. So of course they don't have any supply chain issues if you're not actually building anything but a prototype. But if you're building more than a prototype, you have supply chain issues. So the winners out here are going to be the people who are flexible enough, have a great team, already have a variety of products and optionality. And I'm hoping the market's beginning to see that we have these kind of products and optionality and lots of different products and ways to pivot a bit without totally changing our business. Our focus is still medium-duty commercial vehicles, big fleets. That hasn't changed, but being able to stay within there and pivot our products so that we can still survive in a world that supply chain is constantly aggravated and chaotic, I think is important. And hopefully, over time, we believe we'll prove that to the market and begin to build more and more trust that we're the survivors.
So essentially a knee-jerk overreaction that's typical, and and I looked at it as I actually shared it in my private Discord, which thank you for anyone supporting that on Patreon there. But it looks like a buying opportunity. That's what I threw out there as soon as I saw it. And it's like you're solving a problem in the market with supply chain. So it was very clever, I thought. And like you said, I feel like the market kind of got that within 24, 48 hours. It seems like you guys are cutting deals with major OEMs pretty consistently. Well, you have, and that usually leads into making deals with others. But this recent one with GM, like, how does that work, and what do you have, the volume that will come from that?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's good to put it in perspective. GM on the Class 4 sells about 7,000 Class 4 chassis a year.
ICE
chassis, all ICE today, exactly.
Right.
To the same kind of customers we sell electric to. Forest River's a customer of theirs. Most of the school bus customers, Microbird's a customer of theirs. Collins is a customer of theirs. So they have that market, and they want to electrify the market. As we know, their partners have said they're going to electrify that market, and it's important for them to make that happen, and they've chosen to partner with us. So I think that's something we've got to succeed at. We're excited about it. That how much of that 7,000 unit market can we take? We want to take all of it, but obviously it's going to take some time for those customers to demand it that way. But the beauty of the GM partnership is they've set us up to be able to make a really high quality electric powertrain for that particular product that's already in the market, already has great service, already has great support. It's a very good chassis that's already has a lot of product built on top of it, and now we're well positioned to just build electric powertrains in it.
And you're the only provider that they're working with for electrified
Today,
solutions
yes,
right now?
Yes, today. Will they look at more in the future? It's hard to tell, but
Yeah.
it's our intention to do such a great job that we can capture their hearts and minds on a continual basis.
Now, do you? I know this is a bit, forward-looking, I guess, but do you have? Of course, you want to grow and expand. Are you looking to maybe one day have another campus in other locations, regionally type stuff like that?
Yeah, so our goal right now is to look at it. Obviously one of the efficiency things we're driving towards, and as we really focus on getting to positive gross margin and getting to profitability, part of that is maintaining some semblance of leanness. And one of the beauties of having one big campus is my engineers are here, my production's here. Anytime you need a fast change, everybody's here. I've got engineers 2 seconds from being on the factory floor, and that's huge, and allows us to really evolve quickly and make changes. But as we grow, obviously the need to have different logistical capabilities nationwide and worldwide is important. But also there's a lot of opportunity to partner. So for example, as we start to look at the UK market, we expect to partner in that market. I'm not expecting to own a factory there. I'm expecting to ship powertrains to the UK and for our partner in the UK to install them. So leveraging our powertrain approach that we do here. The same thing in certain of our customers that, we've talked, Winnebago came out and announced, and obviously we've got a variety of other OEM customers that can imagine installing our product at their factories. So in those cases, we don't have to own that factory. We don't have to integrate the factory. We can leverage the fact that there's already ecosystem and factories built in. So that's our current strategy. But we have certainly will continue to look at where do we need factories, what are our opportunities to integrate, and how do we do it very cost effectively.
Right. Yeah, so as far as your electric charging, your fleet chargers, we discussed it a bit today, but I thought, and you had some interesting angles on it, that's why I wanted to bring it up. So how does providing that to fleets give you sort of kind of an advantage? You talked about some of the software solutions that are incorporated into it, whereas if someone just bought a third party off the shelf, say they bought your bought your vehicles, but then bought a third party off the shelf, they would not get the same benefits that they would get if they bought from you, and that's what I want you to maybe expound a little bit on.
So we think about charging with a very specific lens, and that's the lens of our fleet customers. And they have a very different lens than a consumer who wants to maybe charge at a Tesla Supercharger, or maybe charge at a Electrify America charger at Target while they're at Target, but a very different use proposition than a customer who, for example, might have 100 electric vehicles that return to depot at the same time every night, like a DHL or an IKEA that have this kind of major scale. And that major scale presents all sorts of complexity that don't exist for a passenger vehicle who returns home and plugs in their one car or two cars in the garage at night. And so we specialize in solving that scale problem. And that's both a hardware issue, how many chargers do you need, what kind of chargers, what mix of chargers do you need, and it's also a software question. How can you integrate software from the charger and software from the vehicle so that vehicle and that charger sync up? When that vehicle comes in at night, it knows exactly how much it used, it knows how much it needs tomorrow based on weather forecast, based on how the customer usually drives the vehicle, how the efficiency of the vehicle over the last 2 weeks. All of those things play in from a software algorithm to how long do I need to charge it, when do I start charging it, how do I make the most efficiency out of the energy and not end up with big demand charges in certain areas that have those. So we see an opportunity right now to really specialize to these fleets with software and hardware, even though, as you pointed out, from a connection, a generic connection, a generic CCS1, these vehicles plug in and can take that charge, but from a value and an efficiency, there's a tremendous opportunity to create value in that space with software and hardware, and that's where we're at.
Right. Yeah, I could see that playing out like at airports with buses,
Yep.
and you know where they're constantly, you know, coming online, offline, but you could schedule those, you know. So it makes a lot of sense to have it customized for the actual fleet. So that's a pretty neat, you know, add-on to the EV charging there. So like as far as, I mean, walking around the plant here, seeing, you know, you know, from end to end, what you guys do, how much of it is proprietary to Lightning eMotors of the parts that are assembled here?
Right.
What all do you manufacture yourself?
So about 30% of it is proprietary. So framework if you think of all the framework, it's custom designed for specific application, install, fit, the ability to be universal in terms of repower and fit in lots of different applications. Those are our designs and our manufacture. Things like the onboard charging module for DCFC, that's our product. From beginning to end, we designed it and manufactured it. Then there are products we buy, the motor and transmission for different platforms today we buy. We are actively looking at, do we develop those ourselves or manufacture those ourselves? Do we buy a company that does that? So those are all things we evaluate almost daily today, the make or buy question on what do we do with that. The assemble is ours, and then of course all the proprietary software. And we look at software in 3 different parts. We look at the part that manages the powertrain, like how much regen do you get at what speed, and when do you turn on cooling for the battery cooling, and all the charging. That's the powertrain software. But there's also the software that integrates it into the vehicle. How do you make sure that the ABS brakes and the traction control and the seatbelt monitors and the ABS all works with this powertrain and how it goes, whether it's an e-chassis or an OEM chassis, a legacy OEM chassis. And then thirdly, all of our telematics and analytics. All of that software in all 3 territories, in all 3 areas, are our proprietary software that goes here as well. So combination of some hardware and a lot of software that makes up what's proprietary for us.
Got it. Yeah, and I guess that makes sense. A lot of people don't think through the entire process that, you know, you put in an electric motor, okay, you know, now you have to have software to track everything and
Yep.
and track the battery charge, you know, the heat, all those kinds of things.
And the cooling system and all sorts of things people don't really think about. For example, when that vehicle's plugged in, somebody turns the key and hits the throttle, it doesn't let them go anywhere because it's plugged in. And that's important because anybody who's driven an electric vehicle, including me, have accidentally almost, you know, if the software didn't keep us from driving away while plugged in, we would have.
Right. Well, people, you know, you see it every once in a while. People pull off from a gas pump.
I have done it at a gas pump before too. So it absolutely
you know,
happens.
it's a potential
It's
scenario.
a real thing. So we, you know, all that software, safety software that keeps you from driving the vehicle or even putting it in gear if it happens to be plugged in. But on a commercial vehicle, there's other things. For example, on a big motor coach, they're air-operated doors and air-operated suspension. We don't allow the suspension to kneel if the vehicle's still in drive, and we don't allow the suspension to kneel if the vehicle's, you know, at a certain speed. The air brakes have to know how to come on and not come on, but also the cooling system for the charger has to know to come on. So even when the vehicle's not running, there's vehicle software that has to manage the charging, all the cooling system and heating systems, because we precondition batteries. So these batteries are heated. So if it's really cold outside, like it can be in Colorado, and you're charging the vehicle, we need to heat the batteries up so they'll take the charge.
This kind of sounds like things that you've implemented coming from experience. Right?
Yes. Yeah,
experience with actual vehicles on the road.
Experience with vehicles on the road, and some of it learned the hard way, I'll admit it. So, and I think anybody who says you don't learn a few lessons of the hard way probably hasn't done it yet.
that kind of leads me to, we'll kind of wrap it up here, but after seeing the volume that is even being done here, even though you're still, early stages here, what is the barrier to entry for anyone else to come into the market and just say, we're going to take over all of Lightning eMotors business? Like, is it that easy, or?
No, I think there's a few things. The market's kind of figured that out. Even as you've looked out there at all the people who've, even Ford has been 2 years late getting their product to market, so clearly they've admitted it's harder. You've got other big players admitted it costs a lot more than they thought. So some of the things some of the barriers to entry, one of them is the supply chain. So each one of these powertrains has 1,500 components, and it's not easy to figure out which component to buy. You don't just dial up these people and say, hey, send us something. There's a lot of work around validating each component, integrating each component from a software and a cooling and a hardware and an electrical and a wire harness. The wire harnesses you saw, highly complex and custom for each vehicle. A lot of work goes into the design of that and the validation and the testing. And then the actual design itself, how do you make sure that this powertrain can be both a repower powertrain, it can go in after the body's already installed or before? How do you create enough flexibility that powertrain can go into an ambulance on one day and a school bus on another day and a cargo van on another day and a wheelchair access van on another day? Those are all things that are unique to us and that we've done a great job, and I think created a barrier to entry. The software takes a lot longer than everybody thinks because of all these subtleties I was talking about a moment ago, ranging from, hey, make sure you can't just drive the thing away if it's plugged in, to how are you handling all the other components so that you don't run out of battery from running accessory components, and all the analytics and telematics. And then finally, there is some barrier to entry around the manufacturing. I think you see that. Certainly everything from how do you do it efficiently to how do you get the cost down. I think, to quote Elon Musk, he said, anybody can make a prototype. Making something at a reasonable cost that you can make money on, much, much harder. and that's proving itself out for a lot of people. So we're still in that space, but I think after, that we're 6 years into now making the electric vehicles and 13 years into making commercial vehicle technology, we're starting to get really good at that, and there's a lot of barrier to entry, you learn firsthand there.
Yeah, because like you said, you guys have the capabilities to work with all kinds of different nuanced ambulances and buses.
It took us a long time. Each time you get another one, you're like, wait a minute, you can't put the battery there because they got a water tank there. Wait a minute, they've got a gurney lift out the back. How are we wiring that in? Wait a minute, they want to put a new human machine interface in how the awning's controlled on an RV. How do we integrate that in a very elegant way to
and the software for each one is going to be different. Like a bus, when you pull up, it hydraulics lower down to let people in and out, and where it's not going to be that on a transit vehicle. So so many nuances to be able to kind of capture an entire market of different classes. This has been great. I really appreciate it. Like I said, once again, having me here, and now I think I'm going to go ride in one of your vehicles and cover that too. So
excellent. Enjoy it. Thank you again, Jason.
Okay, thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.